All right, we are finally live. Welcome everybody to the Gunner Technology live stream, a weekly tech talk for non-techies and techies alike. I'm your host, Terry Merkins. With me is CEO of Gunner Technology and huge Game of Thrones fan. How's it going, Cody?
Oh, it's great. Just eagerly awaiting the finale. It's going to be a monumental poop show.
Yeah, I want to say this is the finale of our series on React and serverless, and I don't think there's any more appropriate way for this finale to have gone for us. Starting 25 minutes late and having everything break on my computer. I think it's the perfect analogy to the last episode of Game of Thrones coming up.
Yeah, the we could definitely say the writers of Game of Thrones lended a hand to the production of this final episode.
we let them write the finale to the React and serverless series, which is a big mistake. By the way, I'm not sure if there are Game of Thrones fans out there watching this.
Oh my
but
gosh,
there is a petition
totally
online.
is.
There's a petition. Yeah, there must be, right? Just odds are. There's a petition online to redo the entire 8th season, and I think it's approaching 1 million signatures. And I'm not sure what that means. It's completely meaningless, but I'm not sure I've ever seen the groundswell of support for hatred of something like I've seen for this last season of Game of Thrones.
It's pretty unbelievable. And the thing was, is like I was like, I mean, I think I've known pretty broadly how this season was going to go. Like there's a couple things I haven't figured out. Like I think we're way past spoilers here, so major spoilers. But I was fairly certain that Arya was going to kill the Night King.
Really?
Yeah, I was fairly certain because again, like you have to look at the fact that what else is she going to do? What purpose is she going to serve?
Kill Cersei.
No, I never saw that. I never saw that. Okay, so this is something I was wrong about. I thought for sure it would be Jaime who killed her.
It was a brick.
Yeah, it was a brick. So I was like looking at what each role the characters would serve in the season finale, and I was like, all right,
maybe kill the Mountain to avenge the Hound.
But no, that had to be I always thought the Hound was going to like kind of kill. I thought the Hound was going to kill the Mountain and live to fight another day. So I was like 50% right there.
But he took a nosedive into a pit of flames, much like this live stream.
It was like a scene from Lord of the Rings where Gollum goes into the volcano. But no, that's what I was looking at. Is basically how are they gonna? What is each character going to serve in this last season? So that's the kind of the way I looked at it. But so anyway, I was, even though I kind of figured how it was going to happen and what the show, I don't know. By the way, I have no idea what the Arya and the White Horse thing is about. I have no idea. So I'm clueless on that.
Maybe her wolf turned into a horse.
What's that?
Her wolf turned into a horse, or no. Her wolf is still alive.
Is it? I thought the only wolf that was still alive was Jon Snow.
Jon's.
Yeah, I thought so.
I want to say her wolf's name is Nymeria, and I think it's still alive.
Oh, just kind of waiting for its cameo.
I think it turned into a horse.
Oh,
it's a horse name. They forgot it was a wolf.
I mean, that works. That totally works. But yeah, so anyway, I was happy when everyone else was not with the long night episode. Like I enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed it. And then I was like, oh, maybe this, because the first 2 episodes of the season were horrible. I was like, oh, maybe this is going to be, this won't be so bad. And then I was just like 100%.
They've gotten so much worse. It's the best thing I've ever seen. I don't know if you watched Dexter all the way through.
Oh, yeah.
But it feels a little bit like that. Although Dexter was going downhill for like 4 seasons and was really terrible after the 4th. And I think went for like 3 or 4 more seasons.
Since the John Lithgow season.
Yeah, John Lithgow was the best. It should have ended there. And
yeah,
I think in my head, that's how this series ends. But I've never seen a show that was so universally loved become so universally hated like Game of Thrones.
It's pretty crazy. It certainly has. And I mean, you see so many people just hate it. And I mean, hate it. So it's kind of interesting how quickly it has gone downhill because it was.
It's fascinating. It's something they'll be talking about for forever.
Yeah. I mean, and if you go online, like you said, people are just livid about it.
And not even like fanboys. That's the interesting thing about this is that it's not the hardcore. Like I think the backlash for The Last Jedi, the Star Wars movie, was largely, well, not even that though. But it's not just the folks who, you ruined my favorite show kind of thing. It's like the casual viewer is like, what the heck is going on? None of this makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Which is the weird thing.
Yeah. So check out Game of Thrones. And just skip
This Sunday, the finale. Actually, I would say watch because I watched the first 3 seasons. I checked back in once it started becoming a dumpster fire and everyone started laughing at it and all these memes started showing up online, which is the best part of this season. So I've watched this season only. And it's been absolutely hilarious. So I would recommend anyone who doesn't watch Game of Thrones, just watch season 8. And and you'll absolutely love it.
Yeah, and you know, I would say if you really want to get into it, just watch seasons 1 through 6. Skip 7 because I think that was horrendous, and then kind of write your own ending or something like that, or just pick up the books. I'm sure the books are going to be much better. Just wait for
those books will never come out. What are you, nuts?
Yeah,
he's never going to write those. They're making 5 prequel shows to Game of Thrones.
Oh my
There's
God.
5 prequel shows in development right now.
Do you think this is like Disney, you know, like you think they're kind of overshooting their mark here? Like when Disney had the success of what was the Force Awakens, and they're oh, we're gonna release a Disney movie every
pump
year
the Star Wars out
100 years.
Yeah,
and then they're like, oh man, maybe not.
You know, they really the only thing that really they screwed it up, and even Iger realized that, and he said we're gonna take another. I think the next one comes out 2022 after this one. So they're gonna take a little break and let Star Wars kind of and let people forget about how bad Star Wars has become too.
Gonna let it percolate a little bit.
Yeah, just let that stew. Well, let's dive into this this special Game of Thrones episode of the Gunner Technology live stream. We missed last week, so I had to look up the question of the week. But actually, before we do that, we'll do the Country Shore giveaway. Country Shore is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. Visit them at countryshoreoutfitters.com. The winner this week is Sandor Clegane from Houndsville, New York. Sandor, you've got a Country Shore hat heading your way, along with copies of our ebooks. And anyone who didn't win this week can hop on our Facebook page and enter the Country Shore giveaway. And while you're on our Facebook page, go ahead and answer our question of the week, which this past 2 weeks ago was, do you play Pokemon Go? And it was basically 50-50, folks who did and didn't play Pokemon Go. I think that Detective Pikachu movie is supposed to be good. I'm not sure if Pokemon Go users will bump because of that. But apparently it's supposed to be pretty good.
I've never played Pokemon Go. Have you played it?
No. My brother played it. I guess maybe I installed it and did it for like a day and was like, I don't understand what's going on. But I never played Pokemon Go.
It was exactly the Titanic reaction to me, where like everyone was like, "You have to do this." I was like, "All right, well,
just out of spite, you're not going to do it."
Definitely not doing it. So it was definitely one of those Titanic. Which, by the way, I still haven't seen the Titanic, so I'm holding it
good
strong.
for you. That's so funny too, because I did that for the longest time. I made a pact not to see Titanic in 8th grade with my friend Tanner Rouse. Tanner, if you're out there, what's up? And then eventually I just watched it when it was on TV one time. It was pretty good.
I'm sure it is. I just
I think I might do that with Star Wars Episode 9, the new one. Man. I might just not see that and just imagine that the series ends with the Millennium Falcon getting blown up with everyone on board at the end.
That's a bold pact right there. I can't join you in that one. I know I wouldn't be able to hang in there.
I'm gonna wait and see how funny it supposedly is, because Last Jedi I think is one of the funniest movies that's come out in the past decade. I laughed so hard at that movie. So maybe if it's funny, I'll see Episode 9. But the question of the week this week, and this is based off of I recently rewatched Blade Runner 2049, and I sent you this service that's called invisiblegirlfriend.com, and I think there might be an invisibleBoyfriend.com. But basically it's a service where I guess there's like a real human being on the other side who you're texting with and sort of getting updates from as if they were your significant other, but they're not a significant other. You're just paying them to pretend to be that. And you can post pictures on like your news feed and stuff like that. So it seems like you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, but you're just paying someone to pretend to be that.
So it's like 100% amazing is what you're saying.
Yeah. So the question of the week is this the best idea ever, or is this the best idea ever? I'm curious to see what people think of this, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. So we've got a yay or nay on invisiblegirlfriend.com is the poll, or is the question of the week this week. So hop on our Facebook page, answer that question of the week. I was going to make it, do you watch Game of Thrones? But I don't want to have spoilers leak on our Facebook page because I actually, they've leaked basically the entirety of what happens in episode 6, which I've read through because I don't care. And I'll just say that for folks who are excited about episode 6, you should be, because it's going to be absolutely incredible. And I can't wait. I cannot wait to see the reactions to it. So next week we'll have probably a poll about Game of Thrones. But for this week, invisiblegirlfriend.com, hop on our Facebook page, answer that question of the week. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. We've sort of we'll get our final thoughts on Game of Thrones next week, but final thoughts on React and serverless this week. So I guess maybe just to start in, let's talk through serverless and why it really is the best way to go at this point.
Yeah, I had a situation with a potential client where they kind of like hired a consultant to they just hired a consultant to kind of like help them plan the infrastructure. And so like it was kind of weird because they're like, hey, can you build this? And here's like what this consultant drew up for the architecture. And it's tough because like serverless removes a lot of the stuff and it's almost like magic. And people who don't understand it, like they have like all this knowledge built up in their head and they don't want to like admit that it's useless knowledge, which it really is at this point. Like containerization, like if you look at the steps we've gone through, you had like traditional hosting where you basically have a server in a room somewhere and your code sits on that server. And then you have basically like, we went basically to cloud and that was basically we had a server inside another server sitting somewhere and you put your code there. And then you had containers where you put your code in a container and then you put that container in a cloud, which was in a server somewhere. And now we just have serverless where you basically just upload your code and use existing infrastructure that's already there. And so you don't have to worry about maintaining anything. And so people who are kind of behind, especially people who are just getting to the cloud part of this, like they're like, well, what are you going to do for security audits? And it's like, well, what are you trying to audit? The only thing you have to secure is your application code. Like you have to make sure you're not like rendering a SQL injection or rendering like cross-site scripting. Like you don't have to worry about DDoS attacks or kind of like man-in-the-middle attacks. You don't have to worry about anything from the infrastructure level. And like when you say that, either they don't believe you or they don't want to believe you.
It sounds like a snake oil salesman pitch. It sounds too good to be true.
Right, exactly. And so like, and so that's why I say, well, give me an example. Like what type of security vulnerability are you talking about? Don't just say security, because like when you say you don't have to worry about security, then they're like kind of like, their ears go up. It's like, well, what are you talking about? Are you talking about a DDoS attack? Okay, well, here I'll send you how AWS handles DDoS attacks and why we don't have to worry about it. So it's weird. Well, how do you handle scalability? Well, we don't have to worry about scalability. What are you talking about? And they're like, oh, they're not worried about scalability. They don't know what the heck they're doing. No, we know exactly what we're doing. And to say, we talked about this in previous episodes, to say that you don't have to worry about scalability with serverless is a bit of a misnomer. But again, like, what scalability are you talking about? There's no servers to spin up, so we don't have to have auto scaling turned on. Like, we have to make sure our account is configured to allow AWS to scale up. And if it's half serverless, if it's a hybrid setup, so like if you have a traditional database, for example, you can actually make the problem worse by allowing Lambda to go nuts on a million array horizontal scale because they're all going to be hitting this traditional database. So in a hybrid situation, you have to worry about scalability. But in a pure serverless, infrastructure, the only thing you want to do is you want to make sure you don't have unnecessary scalability, because then you get charged. So like you don't want to have an error in your code where you're recursively calling a function because you're getting charged to do that. I mean, AWS will oblige you and scale out as much as you need instantaneously, but you don't want to be using stuff that you don't want to pay for. So, and then again, well, how much is this going to cost? And then, well, it's going to be free for at least the first 6 months. What are you talking about? How can that be free? It really sounds like a snake oil salesman's pitch. but it's like a silver bullet for application development. And you know, and then again, the question is, well, what are you at?
Oh, I think Cody just dropped off. This is the season 8 Game of Thrones of Gunner Technology live stream episodes. His video was choppy as all get out, though. I will say that. Just to continue Cody's point, though, while he hops back on, one of the big pushbacks you get too is the fact that you have to say AWS handles this stuff, or Azure handles this stuff, or Google's cloud service handles this stuff, because you're sort of kicking the can down the road a little bit. I was just talking about how one of the pushbacks you get is when you tell people that AWS just handles this, because I think people don't like to hear that you're sort of dependent on this service. And I also, whether it's Azure, Google, or AWS, whatever it is, the fact is they have folks working on this full time. They have hundreds of engineers who are constantly working on this technology, whose sole responsibility is making sure that it works. So it makes it a little bit of a tougher sell, but you can also point to the vast library of white papers that they have that go through in detail exactly how these services work.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing, again, that's a weird thing, because it's like, who do you want managing your infrastructure? You want, like, I don't want to insult anyone, so I'm going to make up a college name. Do you want, like, Jim Bob Cooter, who got a sysadmin degree from, like, agricultural state tech college managing your infrastructure? Or do you want, like, an AWS employee who manages system critical architecture all over the world?
I will say ASTC has one of the best sysadmin programs in the country.
It's crazy, because, like, someone was trying to argue this with me, and they're saying, well, when you have a dedicated sysadmin, they learn by fixing stuff, and so they just get better and better and better. And I was like, that's exactly right. Like, how many problems do you think an AWS system architect has fixed? Like,
yeah.
I mean, you're talking about, you have no hope of ever catching them in terms of knowledge level. So why try? And again, it's only when you talk to these people who think they know what you're talking about. Like, if you just talk to a client who's like founder, CEO, non-technical, they're like, awesome, giddy up. But it's like when this CEO founder, like, brings on, like, an old school CTO, or kind of hires a consultant to help them manage the RFPs and stuff like that, that's when it gets into problems. And the weird thing is like, it's like hiring an attorney. If you hire an attorney, they're going to do stuff just to earn their money. You see what I'm saying? Like, you paid them to do something, so they're going to do stuff. So, like, if you're a founder, CEO, and you hire a consultant to help you identify a development partner, they're going to actually create questions where questions shouldn't exist, because otherwise they're what are they getting paid for?
Right.
And this is, by the way, this is exactly why we do that. The Gunner Launchpad is like, you don't have to take our word for it. Like, you just basically try us out for 30 days. We start developing and setting up the architecture. And if we're snake oil salesmen, at the end of 30 days, you don't have to use us, and you don't lose anything. There's no commitment. This is exactly why we do this. And the same thing where again, I had the consultant say, well, we don't want to lose 30 days of development. Yeah, that's great. If you're not happy, we'll turn over everything we did with a non-exclusive license, which you can use into perpetuity. Then you haven't lost any development time either. You've just basically got a month of free development. So this is exactly why we do it. And I still think that a lot of people, especially with that traditional background, say this is too good to be true. And for some reason, just push back on it tremendously. And again, I think it's they'd have to admit that a lot of the knowledge they have is obsolete. And a lot of people don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's like a horse and buggy situation when the automobile came around. I mean,
yeah,
they realized the entire industry was toast overnight.
Exactly.
Basically.
Exactly.
It's going to be interesting too. I was just thinking with like HIPAA compliance and regulations and stuff, where they have these massive documents about necessary security requirements that have to be set up for whatever architecture you're using, it's going to be impossible to explain that like 90% of those security concerns are completely mitigated by a serverless setup. I wonder
Yeah.
how that's going to go.
Yep. I mean, that's the thing is governments more behind than anything on this, right?
Yeah.
And so like their security questions are so over the pale and behind in the times that it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how these are hashed out, because they really just don't make any sense as they stand right now at all.
Do you think people will be more receptive to serverless within the next, I don't know, 2 to 3 years, as more and more serverless applications have sort of proved their value
So
in
big
the real world?
Yeah, so big shout out to Lego. So Lego has gone completely serverless. So that's a big company, right? That went serverless, and we need a few more of those and high profile ones like that.
What the heck is
And
Lego's service online service offering? Do they have like online Lego like Minecraft stuff where you can build
um,
things online?
I know they have like create your own like instructions. Like they have like an
Okay.
e-commerce store where you can buy missing parts. They
I saw
have
I saw Lego release something for King's Landing, and it was just 10,000 Lego pieces, and it was just rubble.
Good on them, man. That's exactly as it should be. That is tremendous. But yeah, so we need a lot of other high profile serverless type stuff, and we need these people in the industry to kind of like retire. So they quit putting bad information in non-technical people's ears. That's really what kind of needs to happen here in order to kind of get over this old school mindset in terms of scalability, ownership of infrastructure, and security.
Do you
That's
think that's
really
one of
what
the
needs to happen.
hesitancies with the old school folks, is the fact that not only is serverless a far superior architectural setup, but it needs vastly less manpower to run?
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, again, there's that fear aspect of it where it's like, oh, I'm losing my job, or things like that. If this is true, then I'm obsolete. And it's weird because, like, I mean, you and I have the traditional information. Not that we were ever dedicated sysadmins, but I can run a pretty elaborate traditional architecture if
Yeah.
need be. And as soon as this serverless, I kind of skipped over containers because like when containers were becoming hot, serverless was just starting to get mentioned, and so I kind of skipped containers to move to move straight from containers to serverless. But I can use Docker, I can use Kubernetes, or whatever, however you pronounce that.
Yeah.
But like I was like, man, I'm gonna check out this serverless stuff, and I was never happier to say goodbye to all of that information. Like I was like, now I can make room for like movie quotes, and not need to know, how to configure an Nginx proxy server. So it's fantastic.
Do you think serverless is the Avengers Endgame of architecture? Do you think it's like Thanos, it's inevitable, or is there somewhere else that it can go?
Um, so yeah, this is like we need to get someone from Gartner on the phone who can pretend like they know what they're talking about. So there will be something else. I mean, like I don't know. What I see is I think more and more things will go serverless as opposed to something replacing serverless. Like because I don't know what could. I really don't know what could, to be honest with you. And I'm sure something certainly could. But I don't know what that is. I mean, I think we're going to see it for the next. I think we'll see it mature in like 5 years, and then like be around for be the it thing for another 10 years after that. And again, like we've seen things like servers gone serverless, databases now have gone serverless, CDN serverless. So we see more and more pieces of the architectural stack go serverless, for lack of a better word. We'll see more and more of that as time progresses, more things going serverless kind of thing.
What if you could run serverless, but you used like users' machines to actually run the requests or something like that, where you sort
Yeah,
of like democratize the actual running of the processes, and
well,
then
and
you
that
kind of remove AWS from the picture, which is to me the only thing left to to yank out.
It's kind of funny because like that we do that in large respects. So like there's so much stuff you can do on the client, and the client is a web browser, it's a mobile phone. So for example, like in a lot of our projects, if it's not a ton of emails, so in a traditional setup, what'll happen is like a user will do an action on their web browser, like fill out a form. That form will go to the server, which will process the form and then send an email. The server will send an email, or the serverless function will send an email. What we're actually doing in a lot of cases, let's again bulk email, is we're sending the data on the client to the serverless function, and then we're sending the email from the client itself. We're not actually handling that either. So that's a good point. Like you've seen people do that with Bitcoin, like a lot of things,
Right.
like a lot of they got caught, but a lot of places were putting mining functions in the browser. So when you visited their site, you were actually helping them mine Bitcoin.
I think actually that got busted with one of the ad delivery services. I think like one of the big ones that like ESPN was using and a whole bunch of other folks was actually using the user's browser to mine for Bitcoins too. So like everyone was getting in on that racket.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's the same type of deal, but you can use it for non-nefarious purposes kind of thing. So it's interesting, and I think we really will see more and more of that kind of go serverless and move to the client in the near future.
We have a question here, actually, a really good question, which is how hard is it to migrate an existing architecture to serverless? I guess it depends would be the first answer.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely, it depends. And so what this is what was interesting about Lego, right? Is Lego went wholesale serverless, right? What you traditionally see is, especially larger companies, they make certain components of it serverless.
Certain long running processes and stuff like that they can break out of the
Right, right,
application.
right. That's exactly right. So they'll make more of those kind of serverless as opposed to going
Serverful.
wholesale. Yeah, instead of going wholesale serverless, they'll make each individual component of that serverless, which is it's nice to go piece by piece because you keep that familiarity. But some places will go again, depending on how it is, full sale serverless, and other ones will say, okay, we're going to make our database serverless now. We're going to make our CDN serverless now. Okay, now we're actually going to get rid of our application servers. So it could be a step-by-step process, or it can be like a wholesale, let's go full bore type thing.
Do we want to talk a little bit about React too? Because I know this is the React and serverless series. I don't think React necessarily is the end-all be-all technology that serverless is to architecture, but it is a pretty slick package to use. So maybe just a quick overview of, or some final thoughts on why React is a great way to go when you're building out your applications.
Yeah, it's so it fits together really nicely. Like React fits in with the serverless framework really well, and so we take a number of technologies around the serverless idea. We have Amplify, which is an AWS technology, AppSync, which is an AWS technology, serverless framework, which makes working with different environments with AWS CloudFront or CloudFormation a lot easier. And then we have, like you said, React for our web client. Sometimes we'll use Gatsby if we're doing more of a static CMS type site, which is also really just React. And then we'll use Expo, which is really just React Native to interact with to build native mobile apps. So it's kind of like the perfect stack, especially for us when we're starting out. Most of our projects are new projects. And so it allows us to get off the ground extraordinarily quicker than anyone else. Like
Yeah.
this is another conversation I had. Well, you didn't take into account how long it's going to take to set up the infrastructure. And I was like, oh, that's because it takes 15 minutes. And it does. It literally does.
There's companion episodes you can watch for us walking through the script. It takes a little bit longer than 15 minutes for those, but
but we're gonna get it to. We're gonna have our last episode, which I'm working for on this. The last episode we have is totally going to be us getting it down under in the 15-minute frame. We're totally going to get down there.
We're going to get there.
Yep.
That's another thing that sounds like it sounds too good to be true, but it's just reality. It's just how it works now.
Yep, that's right. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm cramping. So that's my Game of Thrones finale for this episode, is that you see me trying to fight a leg cramp.
Trying to cramp up. It's we've been waiting for the cramp for 8 seasons now to appear, and it finally did. And it's everything we hoped it would be. Any final thoughts on React and serverless before we sign off here?
It's a great time to be a developer because all of these technologies, serverless, it's all geared toward the developer. It's just letting the developer write the business logic and not worry about how to run the business logic. So it's all about the same thing with entrepreneurship. It's a great time to be a tech entrepreneur because you can build a team just focused on writing your idea, not how to support your idea, not how to host your idea, just creating your idea. And it's just like, it's really, really a good time for developers and not a great time for sysadmins. But again, those people should be moving toward development and taking advantage of these tools that we have.
One thing I just thought of, it's often said cheap, fast, and good. You can pick two. Do you think maybe serverless has somewhat solved that issue, and we can get the full triumvirate of cheap, fast, and good?
Yeah. So yeah, for sure. And we put that in kind of our literature as well, is you actually do get to have all three. You get to have a world-class architecture where you're only paying for what you use. So you can be a startup with 2 users and have the same setup as, an ESPN or a Lego who gets, millions of visitors or users a month kind of thing. So you get that cheap, especially with the setup that we're walking through. And again, check out the companion episodes. You get it fast, you get it in 15 minutes. And you get it good. Like, this stuff is fast. It's scalable. It's all open source technologies. Like, React is built and managed by Facebook. We're using AWS technologies. So it's all really, really good, fast, and cheap.
Yeah, and when you don't have to worry about price, when you don't have to worry about how quick it's either getting spun up or it's getting run, you can really focus on development, which is what developers should be focusing on. So it just becomes everyone's focused on making it really good.
Exactly.
It's pretty amazing.
No one wants to if you're doing the same thing over and over, like, the more time you spend doing the same thing is just, it tells you what a waste it is. So if, like, every project you get, you're taking 2 weeks or 3 weeks to set up an infrastructure or for each environment, because we only talked about, like, we're only really talking about one environment. Like, the costs multiply based on how many infrastructures you have. So, how many environments you have. So if you need a staging environment, build environment, production environment, you have to have all that stuff just sitting around doing nothing other than the production environment most of the time. And you're paying for that. So it's just, and then forget the time it takes to set each one up. So anytime you're doing something manually, anytime you're like going into a console and spinning up a server, or, that's just waste of time. You shouldn't be doing that, because you can basically, they call it infrastructure as code. You can basically boilerplate code all of this setup and just type in deploy in the command line and you're good.
Well, I think that's the perfect place to leave it, because I would encourage folks to check out our last pop-up episode associated with this React and serverless series, which will be coming in the next couple of days, where we're going to spin up the full environment in hopefully around a quarter of an hour, which should make people's heads spin and hopefully be a proof of concept we can point people to when we tell them that it takes 15 minutes to spin up an environment and all this stuff is super cheap and super fast. They can literally just go and watch it. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream and our React and Serverless series. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to check out the next episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We actually have a special guest next week. We have Frank Kane, who wrote a series on Elasticsearch and Elasticstack for Manning Publications. So he's going to be joining us next week, next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure to tune in for that. It should be a really interesting discussion. He's super knowledgeable. So we're going to pick his brain for about half an hour and hopefully get you guys interested in Elasticsearch and Elasticstack. Make sure to hop on our Facebook page and sign up for the Country Store giveaway. Country Store is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. Visit them at countrystoreoutfitters.com. And while you're on our Facebook page, answer our question of the week, which this coming week is virtual girlfriends or boyfriends, yay or nay. And if you're confused what the heck that means, watch Blade Runner 2049, where what's his name? Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling has a virtual, like a hologram girlfriend in that movie. And there are now services like invisiblegirlfriend.com where you can sign up for a fake girlfriend. So hop on our Facebook page, answer that question of the week. Check out the podcast for this episode on iTunes. The associated blog post will be on gunnertech.com. Our ebooks are on Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Amazon, iBooks, and anywhere else ebooks are sold. That's going to do it for this episode. Make sure to tune in next Thursday again with Frank Kane for the next episode of the Gunner Technology live stream. I'm Jerry. That's Cody. We'll see you next week.
And in 2 weeks.